Hello, and this is your Nick Kennedy, the Gray Man, coming to you just after Thanksgiving. I hope you all had a very enjoyable holiday, and hope you didn't eat too much. And if you did, I've got the whole winter to get it off, so not a big deal. I'm right there with you. I'll give an excuse to get those gym memberships coming out in January, huh? Uh, Before we start, I just want to give a shout out there to my Nigerian brother, the Big K. He's away on personal business stuff right now, and hopefully he'll be back keeping a seat warm for him. Until then, I'm solo, and hopefully I'm going to be enough to entertain you. Uh, so, as we know, the movie The Marvels now has been out for about 3 weeks, maybe a little bit more. Don't really know. Um, for the most part, everyone knows now it is a tremendous financial disaster, and I think that's probably understating it. Um, Last time I looked, the budget was listed as 200,000, without getting to a lot of um, mathematics, stuff, boring stuff. When the budget's to find out how much a movie's got to make, roughly, you got to time it by two to kind of account for, um, distribution overseas and advertisement, etc. So if the Marvels said they did 200, they probably lied. It probably was more than that. Probably, I'm guessing more like 220, 230. But let's just say 200. And they would probably want to do globally at least 400 before we can talk about um, breaking even. Yeah, they're not going to see that. I don't think they'll even see 100 domestic. So it's a big money. It's a big money loss anyway. Uh, so there's that, and I don't really want to talk about the financials per se. I just wanted to, more or less bring that up. And then, if you originally, I was going to do a review. Um, but if you want to see a review, they're all over the place. Just by all means, go out there. I think the Critical Drinker's done one. Always a good time watching his shows. Gary, the Neurotic. Um, um, yeah, so there's a ton of them out there you can watch. They pretty much all say the same thing, by the way, which is not good. I thought I'd do something a little bit different, though. Um, I have not really gone back and watched the early Marvel movies that made Marvel what it was. Let's say around 2016, when it could do no wrong. We know that they kind of lost their way for whatever reason. A lot of reasons, I think. Certainly, again, all over the internet, people are talking about it. Maybe that they're um, irrational um, devotion to the message overtook good, movie making. Well, there's a few things anyway. We can discuss it, hit on a few of them. I plan to do kind of a two-parter. This one, I kind of just want to hit from an entertainment standpoint. And I'm just going to bring up some plot points that I think are worth mentioning between the way they did things with Iron Man, the original movie that made it all happen, and where they went wrong today with the Marvels and with Marvel movies in general the last few years. But I'm going to kind of hone in there a little bit on the Marvels because the most recent one and probably the biggest failure to date. And then later on, like I said, in another one, I'm going to delve more into the direction and writing and give some points there that I believe are interesting. But the first point I want to make about the two is I'm actually glad I went back to the drawing board and saw what they did right, because there's a lot they did right. The first point that I want to make out is that by watching the original Iron Man, and I also watched Captain America: Civil War recently too, and absolutely the same thing, and that is they made you get emotionally invested in the character. You know, I mean, you were rooting for them when they failed. You were there when they succeeded. You were cheering on with them. You felt like you were a part of it. They won a part of your heart. You were invested emotionally. And that doesn't always mean like, you're rooting for the person. I mean, let's use one of the greatest villains of all time, Darth Vader. I saw the Star Wars, and it was called Star Wars at the time, not A New Hope, by the way. I've never referred to it as A New Hope. Don't think I ever will. It was Star Wars. I saw that when it first came out many, many, many times. I think I lived at the movie theater, that and Jaws. But anyway, whenever you heard that music, da 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 da, and you saw him come in, you immediately had a reaction, an emotional reaction, probably a chemical reaction. Your heart might have beat up a little bit, maybe sweat a little. The point is that character meant something to you, and you were invested. You were. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Now let's hop forward to this movie, The Marvels, and look at the three actresses. Um, I got to tell you, I was a big comic book fan in the 70s and 80s and into it a little bit in the 90s. Um, Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers. Don't think she was around when I was reading the comic books. There was a Captain Marvel that was Monica Rambeau. She was part of the Avengers, and I won't swear to it, but I seem to remember she may have actually been in charge of the Avengers for a short period of time. I'm going back like 40 years, so if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But I thought she was. Anyway, regardless, I actually liked her character back in the comic books too. I didn't quite think she fit the Captain Marvel or Marvel motif, but I did like her character. And I think she was better fleshed out than in the comic books than she is in the movie. In the movie, I don't know. I know she seems like a nice enough person. I mean, she's certainly attractive. But her uniform wasn't bad. I just don't know who she is or what power she had. I honestly don't. I know that Captain Marvel is a Superman kind of person, but don't really know her powers either. I know she's a badass, but apart from that, don't know. Ms. Marvel, no, I didn't see the show. I did not see the show. I do not plan on seeing the show. The actress, by the way, and her name, I should know it. I'm not. I'm sorry, I don't. But I believe her name in the movie was Kamala, Kamala, Kamala something Iman maybe. And as a character, a lot of people say that she was a bright spot in the movie. I'm going to have to disagree there. She came across to me, and I'm talking about the character, not the actress, who I've actually seen interviewed, and she seems like a nice enough person. She actually seems to be more seasoned with her interview skills than others that I've heard. But I'm talking about her character in the movie. Grated on me. It just seemed a little annoying. I mean, I did actually like the Monica Rambeau character, although again I don't know her. And Captain Marvel was just kind of there, to be honest with you. So I don't really feel like we got emotionally invested in any of them. Don't know who they are. Don't really know what the skills are. That crazy line, and I'm paraphrasing now, that had me scratching my head. I think Monica Rambeau said it something like, you can create light, talking to Captain Marvel. I think you can create light, and she can turn light into matter, and I can see light. She can see light. Is that a superhero power now, I guess? Interesting. Seeing light is now a characteristic of being a superhero. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. I don't need to comment more on that. Let's just move along. The next thing that I was kind of humorous is I had the great fortune of raising my son. I've got two children. They're fully grown now. My son, I had the great privilege of raising him. We had a good time together, watching a lot of science fiction. For those of you out there who have children, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, you could do a lot worse than sit there every night watching an episode of SG1. That's what we did for quite a while. That was a great thing, and then we went on to the next one at Stargate Atlantis. Good times, good times. Anyway, getting back to what I was saying here, he moved in with me when he was about 7 years old, and he had his own restroom, a bathroom, and he was responsible for cleaning it. And as all parents, I guess, are, I was very protective of him, and I was nervous in case something would go wrong. There'd be an accident. They don't allow you practice. When you're a parent, you're just doing it cold, and if you make a mistake, oh well. That just happens. I just knocked the camera a little bit there. Yeah, you don't usually get a chance to make it up too much. So let's see here. Wait a minute. Let me turn this on here. I got my little. There we go. Yeah, let's get this going. Good. Little, scenes on the side there. So he moved in with me, and I brought him in, and I showed him that I got toilet bowl cleaner. I said, son, this is toilet bowl cleaner. It's a thing called acid. I think it was acid, not alkaline. They both kind of do the same thing, depending on how concentrated they are. But anyway, I said, this is acid. If you get it on your fingers and stick it in your eye, you could go blind. So please don't touch it without supervision. And he looked at me and said, yeah, Daddy, because whenever I see anything and I'm not sure what it is, I like to stick it in my eye and see how it feels. So I felt foolish. Daddy, what kind of idiot do you think I am? I'm going to see something, not know what it is, and just pour it in my eye and see what happens. Why am I bringing that up? Well, I'm bringing that up because that's what Monica Rambeau does, not just once, but twice. For those of you who actually were unfortunate enough, like I was, to watch WandaVision, there was a scene, and again, I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it, to be completely honest with you. But I seem to remember there was some kind of a barrier that was around the town that Wanda was holding hostage for, so that she could have children. She could keep children that she never had. Actually, I think she kind of stole them from. Don't get me going about WandaVision. There's enough about that online too if you want someone to criticize WandaVision. But anyway, the point is, she saw a barrier around the town, and she didn't know what it was. So she thought to herself, I know, I think I'm just going to walk into it. And she did. And I think that's how she got her initial powers. Again, not even really sure what her initial powers were. I'm not even sure what her powers now are. But yeah, I mean, she's just like, and she's supposed to be a scientist. So yeah, I'm a scientist. And I guess, you're not sure what something is. The best thing to do is just like walk into it. And then, of course, now we're dealing with the Marvels. And I'm not going to try to spoil it for anybody. But it happens at the very beginning of the movie, so I don't really think I'm giving that much away. But she's in space, and she's supposed to explore and investigate a phenomenon. And she goes over to it, and she's not sure what it is. And she's going to examine it. Does she take out, as they say in Star Trek, her tricorder and do readings? No. That's too mundane. She sees fit to get her finger and stick it in it. And I seem to think I didn't see a glove there. I can't swear to that, but I would be curious to whether she had a glove. I want to say she didn't, but I could be wrong. And that would open up a whole new can of worms, by the way, about why she'd have bare skin in space, but regardless. But she touched it, and then boom, now she's got even more powers or something. Hard to say. But the point is, this woman has got to stop sticking her body and fingers in places she doesn't know what they are. I mean, she, especially being a scientist, I'm sure that that would not be an approved methodology by most scientific studies. So anyway, that's another thing. Another thing I want to bring up is the fact that if you watch Iron Man, And for that matter, you could probably apply this to a lot of the other movies. I'm sure with Captain America, probably the same thing. He failed. He failed over and over again. He failed more times than he succeeded. Um, when you watch him trying to get that suit right, and that guy, he should have been in a body cast. Everything he did was wrong. He was banging into things and slamming around, and um, it was disaster. And he kept him pursuing and pursuing and pursuing, and until he got it right. Because it's only through failure do we have success. Uh, and that happened all the way through the movie, not just with the suit. Happened with you know, his uh, his fight with Obadiah Stane. The thing is his escape from the compound with the terrorists. Oh, I'm sorry, I mean activists nowadays. Regardless, I mean, far from perfect. Far from perfect. It's almost like he lived despite himself, not because of himself. And I thought that was pretty interesting too. So the point I'm trying to get to is that you have to fail to succeed, and that was important. I don't think that they really understood that in the Marvels. Um, they Captain Marvel always immediately succeeded. The only time she was held back was when she had that electronic thing in the back of her neck. And then how did they rectify that? Well, what they did was is she had to, I forgot how she found out it was there, but when she did, she just kind of like, oh, look at this, boom. Oh, now I'm invincible. Characters have to have a climax where they're challenged and they have to overcome and they have to become a different character. If you show me a movie where there's a character at the beginning and at the end, and he's the same character, I will show you something that just wastes 2 years of 2 years, 2 hours of your time. Nothing happens. You might as well just watch, a Three's Company episode. And I wouldn't recommend watching Three's Company, by the way. But I mean, it's lightweight. A person's got to go through challenges and overcome. And Captain Marvel does not do that. Everything comes naturally and easy to her. Um, it's really not a lot of fun to watch someone who has no challenges in any way, shape, or form. And Tony Stark was a severely flawed individual. I don't know if in the movies they made it quite clear. In the comic books, he was a raging alcoholic who fell off the wagon a few times. Um, and I think they hinted that in the movies. I don't think they come right out and say it, but regardless, a hero truly becomes a hero because they overcome. When he was trapped by the terrorists in the compound, it took a few times for him to get out of there. I mean, he had to work at it. It wasn't easy for him. Let's talk about the antagonist too, by the way. So Tony Stark had two actually. The first one really didn't need to be fleshed out all that much. I think we're all familiar with the Middle East and the different groups there that are very severe. They're single-minded. They have their agenda, which they need to be filled. And a lot of times from these groups, they will not accept no. They're very determined, one way or another, to get what they want. And we're familiar with that. So we didn't really need to see a lot of character development. We just needed to see that he was, I think it was in Afghanistan with one of these military groups. And we kind of got the idea, what he was up against. These weren't Girl Scouts. The second one, of course, was Obadiah Stane. At the beginning, you don't really know what he's all about, but you pick up pretty quickly, and you understand the trope that he's money hungry. He wants to be CEO of the company. He's not going to let anyone stand in his way, whether it's Tony or anyone else. He wants power. He wants money at all costs. Uh, and that's pretty easy to understand, and easy for us to dislike the gentleman. Mhm. On the other hand, let's look at the Marvels now. You've got Da-Ben, gender swapped Da-Ben. In all the years I've read comic books, didn't know who Da-Ben was. Still don't know who Da-Ben is. I know it was a male. Know it's supposed to be powerful, but that's about it. Uh, Now, this woman came on the scene. Motivation, I guess, the Annihilator destroyed her planet, and now she's trying to steal resources. Um, yeah, it's hard for me to kind of understand what motivation. She wants to steal oxygen and water and I guess the sun. She's going to steal the sun, I guess. Yeah. Okay, she's going to steal the sun. Also, her powers. Now, I know she had a bracelet and she had a hammer, and I guess she's supposed to be kind of formidable. I have no reading of what any of that meant. So, for example, if someone took away your hammer and she just had the bracelet, how tough would she be? I don't know. Um, how do you put the hammer back and she had the hammer and the bracelet and herself? How tough is she? I don't know. But if you took away the bracelet, she had the hammer. I mean, how you took away the bracelet and the hammer, what could you do? No idea. I will say that I did see a little bit of an inconsistency, which is something I always it annoys me with movies, is when you see a character that's having trouble with well, I guess the best way to put it is the Marvel. Oh, gee, that's telling me that I'm running late here. Uh, that's so that tangents don't get too out of control. Yeah, essentially, she was fighting the three of them, and it was a very difficult fight. They were holding their own, three against one, and it was, I found it hard to believe because Captain Marvel's supposed to be so unbeatable. But anyway, she was fighting all three of them, and she was holding her own. And then later on, she was fighting just Captain Marvel, and it was pretty even. I'm thinking, well, it's so even with Captain Marvel, shouldn't it have been a slam dunk with all three of them? It's kind of inconsistent. But anyway, regardless. The other thing I didn't like very much was the fact that the cats. Let's talk about the cats. I don't need much to suspend my disbelief, but I need something. And they were men, and I hope this is not spoiling anything for you guys. This is kind of in the trailers that these, what are they called? Furlong. I'm not even sure, furlings or whatever the cats are called. And they have the ability to swallow people with the tentacles come out and they swallow these people whole. Well, I wonder, where did that matter go? Where's that mask on? I mean, there's this little kitty, and she's gobbling up 4 or 5 guys that weigh 200 pounds, like 6 foot, 200 pounds, and she gobbles them up, and she's still a little kitty. So, I mean, where do they go? I don't need much. I don't believe they said anything. If they did, I'd like someone to tell me. But um, if they just said there was a waiting room in the Cosmos, they go and they hang out. Okay, I guess, and they can regurgitate them whenever they want to. Sure, I guess. Uh, I don't know. It just didn't sit too well with me. I just need something. I don't know what happened to these people. And the other thing too is I want to bring up. There was a show when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, Lost in Space. You may have known about it. It started off as an adventure in space, although the premise is kind of silly, actually. Let's get a family and put them in a spaceship and then shoot them up into uncharted territories in space and see what happens. Kind of reckless, but regardless, they got quite a nice cast going with them, serious cast, led by Guy Williams, who was Zorro, a master for an actor, master swordsman. If you watch Lost in Space, you will actually see more than a couple of episodes where aliens, for some reason, have decided to fight him with swords. That was actually put in his contract. He liked to show off his sword skills. So yeah, no, want to get an alien, would put a sword fight on him. But hey, it was fine. I liked it. Whatever. And also the mother of June Lockhart from Lassie fame. Mike Goddard, who actually was professor at Bridgewater State College, Massachusetts. He recently died. I met the man. Good guy. Good guy. He played Don West. Billy Mooney, who played Lanier in Babylon 5, for those of you who've had the pleasure of watching that. And if you haven't, I highly recommend Babylon 5. And Angela Cartwright played Penny. She was Sound of Music, one of the children there. Marta Kristen played Judy. I don't really think she did much before or after. I think I remember seeing her in a commercial for Golden Grahams back in the day, but that's about it. But anyway, it was the first season was a very serious science fiction show. And that was what they promised when they signed these actors, and that's what they delivered. I guess the ratings mustn't have been as good as they wanted to, because towards the end, there was another show that popped up, which was Batman, which was a very tongue-in-cheek show. It actually it didn't take itself seriously in the least. And there was a word that they still use today that came out of that show called camp. And when you hear something's campy, it's something not to be taken too seriously. Again, tongue-in-cheek, not quite the comedy, but comedic definitely at some areas. And Jonathan Harris, who played Dr. Smith from Lost in Space, was a complete ham. Love him, hate him, and I think I did a bit of both in things he did. But he was truly a ham. And he went to Irwin Allen, who created Lost in Space. He also did Land of the Giants, and he did a lot of disaster movies too. I want to say Towering Inferno, maybe. And regardless, and he talked him into taking a different direction with season 2 and 3. They were going to color, and he suggested on top of going to a color program, they could also maybe make it a little campier, so it wouldn't take itself so seriously. And he talked Irwin Allen into doing it. And instead of being about Professor Robinson and its adventures, it became more about Dr. Smith, Will, and the robot. Having a bunch of silly adventures, and the robot would do things like cry and all. They'd be getting chased around by giant vegetables, giant carrots and things. I guess it must have gotten good ratings at the time. I was very young. Don't really know, but it did survive another couple of years, and then it ended. That reminds me of what was going on here, and that's why I'm bringing it up. It's like bookends, the same thing. It seemed to me with Iron Man, they took it very, very seriously, and they did a good story. They took their time. They got you involved, which is extremely important to being a successful movie, getting the viewer involved. And then towards the end, it almost became campy with the Marvels. I mean, with these cats running around gobbling people up, and some of the things I might have said about the movie might be incorrect, and that's because they just didn't have me hooked. I just, I was very indifferent. I was watching my watch more than I was actually watching what was on the screen. But anyway, so that's that. I'm going to start cutting this short now, because I am going to do a part 2 follow-up. This was one I kind of just wanted to do from the point of view of a viewer, and some things I noticed. On my next one, I'd like to delve a little bit deeper into the creativity and direction, writing, and all that kind of standpoint, point out a couple of things I thought were interesting. So with that, I am going to leave you. If you did enjoy this, please like, share, and subscribe. I hope you came back, and this is your Nick Kennedy, the gray man, saying, I hope it was good for you too. Thank you. Bye.